Shall we start? We're in Book 2. That means that we are following King Ashwapati in his exploration of this ladder or mountain of many, many different levels of consciousness. Our world of matter is like the base, the foundation for that great world pile. And somehow we're familiar with the main steps of it. That there's matter, and there's life, and there's mind, and then there's above mind, higher levels. Sri Aurobindo says that we're carrying all these worlds, these planes and levels of consciousness within ourselves. And that's why it's possible for Ashwapati to go inside his subjective consciousness and move from one world to another. But he's experiencing them just like we might experience going on holiday to another country, where the language is different and the people look different and the customs are different. He's exploring all these different realms of consciousness. And this realm that we've reached now, it's called the kingdoms of the little life. He told us that this world, this realm, has come into existence through the meeting of the descending divine life power descending into matter. And we read how she was somehow swallowed up by this dark, ambiguous presence, the free life force, the worlds of griefless life that Sri Aurobindo showed us in the previous canto. All that has changed because now the life force with her variety and her power of life and energy and beauty and happiness all has to obey the law of matter. It's been swallowed up by the inertia and unconsciousness of matter. And that's created a whole new level of consciousness, this level of the little life. So how does this combination of the life urge to experience, to delight, to joy, to movement, to change and contrast, how does that adjust? How is it affected by this grip of inertia and unconsciousness? That's what we are reading about. And Sri Aurobindo uses very beautiful imagery to help us to understand this process that's happening. He calls her the mighty prisoner. In the world of matter, he speaks about the dead roll of a slumbering universe. The world of the universe of matter is just circling round, and there's no life in it at all. And then suddenly the life principle is there, and it's very disturbing and troubling and upsetting. There's that kind of harmony of matter, but that's disturbed. And this new power feels the grip of matter. It's very painful. I'm going to read on from line 64. A groping consciousness in a voiceless world, a guideless sense was given her for her road. Thought was withheld, and nothing now she knew, but all the unknown was hers to feel and clasp. Obeying the push of unborn things towards birth, out of her seal of insentient life she broke. In her substance of unthinking, mute soul strength that cannot utter what its depths divine, awoke a blind necessity to know. The chain that bound her, she made her instrument. Instinct was hers, the chrysalis of truth, and effort and growth and striving nescience. Inflicting on the body desire and hope, imposing on inconscience consciousness, she brought into matter's dull tenacity her anguished claim to her lost sovereign right, her tireless search, her vexed, uneasy heart, her wandering, unsure steps, her cry for change. Adorer of a joy without a name, in her obscure cathedral of delight, to dim, dwarf gods she offers secret rites. But vain, unending is the sacrifice. The priest, an ignorant mage, who only makes futile mutations in the altar's plan and casts blind hopes into a powerless flame. A burden of transient gains weighs down her steps, and hardly under that load can she advance. But the hours cry to her. She travels on, passing from thought to thought, from want to want. Her greatest progress is a deepened need. Matter dissatisfies. She turns to mind. She conquers earth, her field, then claims the heavens. Insensible, breaking the work that she has done. The stumbling ages over her labor pass, but still no great transforming light came down, and no revealing rapture touched her fall. Only a glimmer sometimes splits mind's sky, justifying the ambiguous providence that makes of night a path to unknown dawns, or a dark clue to some diviner state. In nescience began her mighty task. In ignorance she pursues the unfinished work. For knowledge gropes, but meets not wisdom's face. Ascending slowly with unconscious steps, a foundling of the gods, she wanders here like a child soul left near the gates of hell, fumbling through fog in search of paradise.
Who is this she?
This is life. This is the life principle, the life goddess, in this state of being under the dominance of matter. It's a very poignant image, no? A foundling. It means that a child who's been abandoned and who's been found, taken into an orphanage, perhaps. Life is wandering here like a child soul who's been abandoned near the gates of hell. And she has this memory or dim instinct of a diviner state. So there she is, fumbling her way. She can't see properly where she's going, fumbling her way through fog, always searching for paradise, for that world of griefless life that she has fallen from, that she's left behind. So we'll start over here. Suresh, you'll read.
The grouping consciousness in a voiceless world. The greatest sense was given that for her Lord, thought was with her and nothing now she knew. But all the unknown was to feel and grasp.
So groping, that's what, when the light goes off, we're left in the dark, we have to find our way, feeling, This consciousness of the little life is like that. It's in a world that can't express itself. It has no voice to express itself properly. What is the tool that she's been given? It is the sense, the capacity to sense things. We have 5 senses, no? The sense of hearing, sight, taste, touch. That was only 4. Smell, right. So, and there's no real conscious awareness to guide that senses. If there's a consciousness in that world, it's just groping around, trying to make sense of its world. Sense is the tool that it's given. There's no thought. That's not yet given. It's withheld. It's held back. In future it will come. But there's no thought. So she doesn't have anything that we could call knowledge. But it's like she's got the whole unknown universe to explore through the senses. All the unknown was hers to feel and to get hold of. We can think of the very first, simplest living creatures, single-celled creatures, They dominated the world for 300 million years. Before that, there was only matter, for we don't know how many billions of years. And then for a very, very long time, there was this stage of tiny little creatures. They were, we could say, they are living, but all they can do is to feel their way around. They have some perception that, oh, maybe this way is better, and that way there's something I want to avoid. No? All the unknown was hers, to feel and clasp.
This word voiceless, as voiceless is one has no voice.
Yes.
The other one is no power or authority to say. Is like that?
Well, yes, no capacity to express itself. Yeah, whatever feelings an amoeba might have, what can it do? It can just push in this direction or move in that direction, and maybe there's something which looks like food, and then it can grab it. Yeah. There's nothing like a voice, a power of expression. You're going to read, Anandi?
Obeying the push of unborn things toward her, out of her seal of insentient life she held, in her substance of unthinking new soul strength that cannot injure what is depth divine, a walk, blind necessity to know.
So that's the kind of the next step. What happens? There's a pressure from behind or from within. Things are waiting to be born, to be manifested in this world. There's some kind of drive. So this, we can say this seal, before she was sealed up, imprisoned in this state of insentient life, life without even the capacity for sense. But now she's breaking out of that seal. The substance which corresponds to this state is, he says, a substance of unthinking, mute soul strength. It is there is a soul behind all this, which is driving for manifestation. But it doesn't have the capacity of thought. It doesn't have the capacity of speech. But there's a soul strength there. That substance can't utter, it can't express what its depths divine. Somehow deep within it is a consciousness that guesses, that has some inkling of meaning, but it can't express that kind of, it's not even knowledge, we could call it a kind of intuition. But it wakes in this substance a blind necessity to know. It wants to become more and more aware, to know more. So how is she going to know anything? Mireille.
The chain that bound her, she made her instrument. Instinct was hers, the chrysalis of truth, and effort and growth and striving nations.
So this is the way that she has to work. The chain that bound her, this chain of matter, she has to use that as her instrument. That's the tool. And she is given this instinct, this divining, this kind of guess, this intuition in the substance. He says that is the chrysalis of truth. A chrysalis, it's a stage in the development of an insect. No? So I think I'm right in saying that the caterpillar is the chrysalis of the butterfly. No? The pupa. The pupa, yes, I think chrysalis and pupa might be the same word. The idea is that this, it has one form, it's going to give birth to something that's got a completely different form. It's something really amazing and miraculous. They call it metamorphosis, that is change of form. So insects go through these changes of form. So this chrysalis, it's maybe a very caterpillar or bug-like thing, but it's going to turn into something else. It's going to turn into truth. This instinct, that's what instinct is in a way. It's the expression in lower conscious forms of the supreme knowledge. And that guides their movements in a kind of unknowing, blind way.
Shraddhavan?
Yes?
Moses said in Nashanda, instinct is the first coming to commentalize.
Yes, it's the first expression in living things of that supreme supramental knowledge. That supramental knowledge actually expresses itself already in matter. If you take a slice of rock and look at it under a strong microscope, people have taken amazing photographs, how everything is arranged so perfectly in its place, the crystals, and how beautiful it is. That's an expression of this supramental power in the depths of matter. But when it starts coming into the first stages of life, it gets a bit more messy and confused, you know. He says slimes and molds and things like that, yeah.
But the actual lot also, no? The actual lot was inside the water and went out suddenly to walk outside.
Yeah, there are amphibian creatures, but I think that's much more developed than what he's talking about here.
Yes.
Yes, it's already an animal creation. Here we are not yet at the animals.
And the insects?
Not yet. We will come to them further on in this, but we are not that yet. We're just these simplest, most primitive living forms. And as I said, they dominated our Earth for 300 million years, and there's still a few traces of them. They look just like lumps of rock, but actually it was something preceding corals, no? Stromatolites, they call them. And they couldn't really move about, but they could somehow suck food into themselves. And they grouped themselves in colonies, they reproduced. And that's what life on Earth was for all those hundreds of millions of years. So this first stage of the little life. Already instinct is there, and effort. Something's pushing to make an effort, and there's growth. And a striving nescience. Sri Aurobindo sees in the movements of these most primitive creatures, there's a kind of struggle to become more aware, to know more. So all this is within us. We are still carrying all this in us. The traces of all these past stages of development. So what effect do they have on us? No? Alice, would you read?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Line 76.
I'm still in those lines. You mentioned that if you take a rock and you slice it into very thin slices and look at it under a microscope, it made me think of fractals.
Yes.
And what relationship do fractals have to all these lines here?
I don't think, it's very interesting, but I think we won't go into it just now.
Right, okay.
That's
So what line are we on?
76.
Okay. Inflicting on the body desire and hope, imposing on inconscience consciousness, she brought into matters dull tenacity, her anguished claim to her lost sovereign right, her tireless search, her vexed, uneasy heart, her wandering, unsure steps, her cry for change.
So this is that life force. No? We have seen her, how she ambitioned the seas for robe and the skies for crown and all that. Now she's confined within these tight limits of matter, but she imposes on that inconscience and inertia of matter, she imposes consciousness. Life brings the first kind of consciousness. So she brings into this dull tenacity, this clinging on of matter, always wanting to be the same. No? She's bringing into that this anguished claim, this suffering, painful claim of life to her sovereign right, delight. That is what she's meant to have. That is her right, is joy, bliss, delight. And she brings the longing for that into matter. Her anguished claim, she says, I want it, I want it. That's why pain is the first expression of delight. Her tireless search, she can't stop searching. Her vexed, uneasy heart, no peace there at all. It's troubled, uneasy, nothing is good enough. Her wandering, unsure steps, always trying out new possibilities. Her cry for change. These are some of the basic characteristics of the life movement. And then he expresses this in a very remarkable image. Would you read the next sentence, Nidish, please? Line 82, adore.
Of a joy without a name, in her obscure cathedral of delight, to dim dwarf gods she offers secret rites. The great unending is the sacrifice. The priest and ignorant mage only makes futile mutations in the altar's plan, and cast blind hopes into a powerless flame.
Thank you. So we were reading in the essays on the Gita about how everything that happens in the universe is a kind of sacrifice, a kind of offering of nature to Purusha, to the Supreme Being. So even this helpless, lost life, fumbling through fog in search of paradise, she's also worshipping in a way. She's adoring, worshipping a joy that we haven't got any name for that kind of joy. And here the whole universe is like a cathedral, a great sacred building where she can offer her worship. Her obscure cathedral of delight. This cathedral, this gigantic universe is offered, is consecrated to the principle of delight, of ananda, of bliss. And what is she doing? She doesn't really know what she's doing. She's offering to dim dwarf gods, small cosmic powers and principles. She's doing it in a kind of secret way, maybe almost like black magic, we can think. But this sacrifice that she's giving it doesn't have its proper effect. It's in vain. It goes on and on and on, but whatever it is that she's asking for, that bliss, it doesn't come. It's vain, it's unending. Because the priest, the conscious power that is offering this sacrifice, is ignorant. He doesn't know what he's doing. He only makes futile mutations in the altar's plan. He doesn't know how to offer things properly, according to the proper rituals and with knowledge and understanding of the meaning. He's just a mage, a magician. And all he can do, there's the altar with all the implements we need for making an offering, but he doesn't know what to do with them. He just shifts them round. For me, this image is so poignant. I think this is what we are doing all the time. We think, oh, things have to be different, they have to be better. And we just shift things around, and it's just the same. We don't get the results that we wanted. So this is a very poignant, painful level of life development. And we cast blind hopes. There's a flame of sacrifice, but that flame has no power really. And what we are casting into it, it's not conscious prayers asking for definite results. It's just blind hopes. We hope that, oh, something better will come. So painful.
Still flame has some power, no?
It should have, but it says it's a powerless flame. But there is some kind of gain. In the next sentence, he describes the gains. Rita.
The burden of transient gains weighs down her steps, and hardly under that load can she advance. But the hours cry to her, she travels on, passing from thought to thought, from want to want. Her greatest progress is a deepened need.
This is also so poignant, no? Yes. So she gets something, but all those gains that she gets, it just makes her load heavier. A burden of transient gains, they pass, they come, but it just makes everything much more complicated. She can hardly move forward under the load of all that stuff. But she has to keep going. The hours, the moments are calling out to her. She has to go on and on progressing. And she passes from one idea to another idea, from one desire, one want or need to another one. Her greatest progress is a deepened need. If she can go, that sense of need can go deeper from these purely sensual or sense feelings, the need for food and comfort and all that. Her greatest progress is a deepened need. Ganga Lakshmi.
Matter dissatisfied, she turned to mind. She conquers her field, then claims the heavens.
The heavens.
Insensible, breaking the work she has done. The stumbling edge over her labor pass, but still no great transforming light came down, and no revealing rapture touched her fall.
Thank you. So she does what she can with matter, and then she does what she can with mind. She conquers earth, That's the field that's been given for her action. She wants to go further. She claims the heavens. So that effort increases, the scope of her struggle increases, but all these transient gains, whatever she's managed to establish, time just passes over it and destroys it. Insensible. Time doesn't care. Breaking her work, the work she's done. The stumbling ages over her labor pass. The things have been created, they get destroyed also. We will read more about that further in the canto. And still, the real thing that's needed hasn't come. Still, no great transforming light came down, and no revealing rapture touched her fall. She's still in this fallen, blind, instinctive state. Amrita, please.
Only a glimmer sometimes meets one's sky, justifying the ambiguous providence. It makes of night a path to unknown doors, or dark through to some divine state.
Yes. It's as if sometimes there's in the course of evolution, of the development of life, there's something like a flash of lightning, but it's only a very faint flash, a glimmer, splitting the sky of mind. That's the highest level that's been reached so far. Lights up something. But still, that glimmer does give some justification for this state that's going on. He says the ambiguous providence. Providence means the arrangements that the Creator has made for us, how He has set things up for us. Providence. And this providence, it's difficult for us to understand because it seems to be ambiguous. It has more than one meaning. We can't understand clearly why things are like that. But Sri Aurobindo says this providence makes of night, of the darkness and the ignorance and the inertia, the unconscious. It is a path to unknown dawns. There will be some opening up. Wherever there's a night, there will be a dawn. No? And perhaps this night is a dark clue, he says, to some diviner state. The sense of this word clue is that it's like a thread that can lead you somewhere. In the old story of the Minotaur, Theseus is thrown into the labyrinth to fight with this monster in the underground. But the princess Ariadne gives him a clue, a thread. He can tie the thread at the entrance, and then when he's passed through the labyrinth and killed the Minotaur, he can find his way out again. So maybe these nights of inconscience, they are leading us somewhere, leading life somewhere, a dark clue to some diviner state. Joel.
In Nessus began her mighty task. In ignorance she pursues unfinished work. For knowledge grows, but meets not wisdom's face.
So she began, swallowed up in matter, where there's no knowledge. She's given this huge task to do. And she goes on doing it. She is still doing it. This is present tense here. It's interesting if we look on this page. what we've read today, there's an alternation between past tense and present tense. Where there's present tense, he's talking about how things are now. There were developments in the past. This is how it is now. So she began her task in nescience, and now she's still pursuing it in ignorance, in our ignorant consciousness. The work is not yet finished. Life is still groping for knowledge, but she still doesn't yet meet the face of wisdom, of true knowledge. And then again, one of these very poignant images. Fanny, would you read it, please?
Ascending slowly with unconscious steps, a founding of the gods she wanders here, like a child soul left near the gates of hell, fumbling through fog in search of paradise.
This sometimes happens, that mothers have to abandon their children. And then they'll try and leave them somewhere where they may be found, and somebody may take them up and protect them. So life is like that. It's as if she's a child of the divine powers, of the divine cosmos. She's divine herself, but she's been abandoned in this terrible place. Here, in the world of matter, she's wandering, lost. A foundling, it's a lost child, or an abandoned child. Life is like a child soul who's been left near the gates of hell, the darkest, most terrible place. And there she is. She has this memory within her that is driving her to seek always for paradise, this paradise of the life gods, this griefless life. But she's still fumbling through fog, looking for it, trying to find it.
It's more like between child and soul. The child and soul.
So it's linking these two ideas. She's a soul, but she's just a child. Because he's giving the image of life as a child of the gods who's been abandoned. We can go a little further. Kamala, would you read?
In this slow ascension, we must follow her, even from her faint and dim subconscious thought. So only can Earth's last salvation come. For so only good, he knows the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God in the jail delivery of the impersonal soul.
Yes. So there she is, fumbling through fog in search of paradise. Asvapati has to follow her. As she moves slowly upwards, he has to trace the route that she takes. And he has to find even where her journey starts, even from her faint and dim subconscious start. Where has this journey of ascension started from? That's the only way that that Earth can be saved. For so only can Earth's last salvation come, that last fulfillment. It has to come about by a transformation that can only happen by tracing this whole thing from where it has started. We will see that this is what he has to do. in the worlds of life in the coming cantos. 𝐬𝐴SVAPATI has to follow this journey from the very beginning. That's the only way that he can find out the reason, the obscure cause of everything that's holding back our development, our growth, and which is preventing God from setting us free from our prison. He would like to set us free from our jail, from our prison, but something is preventing him. What is the cause of all that? So we will go on reading. He doesn't find the cause until we come to Canto 8. Now we're in Canto 4. We have quite a long way to go.
Dr. Nadkarni says this is Sri Aurobindo's real quest.
Yes.
So only can earth just allow salvation come. Or so only could he know the obscure cause.
Yes.
This
is 𝐴SVAPATI's. This is the stage of this quest. What is the origin? And if you know the origin, you can know the remedy for pain, for suffering, for falsehood, for evil. It's all one cause. How to find it? So he finds it on the last page of Canto 8. Page. Actually, he finds it on page 231. So in this next, second section here, Sri Aurobindo's summarizing 𝐴SVAPATI's journey. What will come later, what he will describe in much more detail later. Shall we stop there for today?
In the line 76, in 74,
yes,
instinct was hers.
Yes.
And I don't know, I have noted in here the expression of true knowledge. Whether you said or Nadkarni said, I do not know, but here it means instinct was hers is true knowledge.
Yes, instinct is, I think we said it, it's an expression of the supramental knowledge. But in the world of matter and the early levels of life. It's not conscious, you know. We see how all the different animal species, they are guided by some kind of instinct. They know exactly what they have to do, you know. We have lost, to a certain extent, that power of instinct, of infallibly knowing what's the right thing for us to do, because we've developed this higher level of consciousness, and we're still learning how to use it, you know? So we have to use thought, and especially reason. Is this the right thing to do? Is that the right? But the animals, they don't have to do that. They just know exactly. Off they set and they fly thousands and thousands of miles to the right place where they can raise their chicks, and then they fly back again. It's just amazing. Butterflies even, immense journeys they make. How can they do it? So, instinct, at this level, instinct is the power which is guiding the development and the movement of life.
Shraddhavan, I had a dog once, and she was having puppies. And she delivered her first puppy in my shoe.
She thought that was the safest place. Yeah.
In my shoe, one of my shoes.
And the small animals, they know exactly how to win your heart, no? Yeah, they're so good at it, irresistible. Yes. So that's this operation of the absolute true knowledge of the supramental, how it expresses itself on the lower planes of existence. So shall we go back and read? A groping consciousness in a voiceless world, a guideless sense was given her for her road. Thought was withheld, and nothing now she knew, but all the unknown was hers to feel and clasp. Obeying the push of unborn things towards birth, out of her seal of insentient life she broke. In her substance of unthinking, mute soul strength, that cannot utter what its depths divine, awoke a blind necessity to know. The chain that bound her, she made her instrument. Instinct was hers, the chrysalis of truth, and effort and growth and striving nescience. Inflicting on the body desire and hope, imposing on inconscience consciousness, she brought into matter's dull tenacity her anguished claim to her lost sovereign right, her tireless search, her vexed uneasy heart, her wandering unsure steps, her cry for change. Adorer of a joy without a name, in her obscure cathedral of delight, to dim dwarf gods she offers secret rites. But vain, unending is the sacrifice. The priest, an ignorant mage, who only makes futile mutations in the altar's plan, and casts blind hopes into a powerless flame. A burden of transient gains weighs down her steps, and hardly under that load can she advance. But the hours cry to her, she travels on, passing from thought to thought, from want to want. Her greatest progress is a deepened need. Matter dissatisfies, she turns to mind. She conquers earth, her field, then claims the heavens. Insensible, breaking the work she has done, the stumbling ages over her labour pass, but still no great transforming light came down, and no revealing rapture touched her fall. Only a glimmer sometimes splits mind's sky, justifying the ambiguous providence that makes of night a path to unknown dawns, or a dark clue to some diviner state. In nescience began her mighty task. In ignorance she pursues the unfinished work, for knowledge gropes but meets not wisdom's face. Ascending slowly with unconscious steps, a foundling of the gods, she wanders here, like a child soul left near the gates of hell, fumbling through fog in search of paradise. In this slow ascension, he must follow her pace, even from her faint and dim subconscious start. So only can earth's last salvation come, for so only could he know the obscure cause of all that holds us back and baffles God in the jail delivery of the imprisoned soul.